What's up, nerds? My name is Cory Bergeron. You are watching Cory Bergeron Recordings. We're back with a brand new video. I'm here at Pebble Studios because I spent almost every minute of my life in this room working on music, and I realized that I've never taken the time to share this room with anyone who cares. So today I decided that let's do a studio tour and give you a breakdown of the studio and show you where I work. So let's first start off with doing just a brief little history of the room to give you guys some context. So this studio was built in 2001. My role here is the studio manager. It was built to be a commercial studio. I took over in 2014. In the first couple of years that I was working here, I was taking what I consider walk-off-the-street clients, essentially clients that cold call and they want to do a 2-hour vocal session, or a band wants you to record their song, as well as I was recording bands, and I spent a lot of time playing in bands. For a handful of years, I was working primarily on just kind of recording and mixing and producing bands. Then for a while there, I transitioned into doing some mixing. I was doing a lot of post-production from home, so a lot of the videos actually on this channel are filmed in my basement. So I was still working out of here recording the bands, but I was doing some of the mixing back at home. And then roughly around COVID time, my wife and I were spending a lot of time at home, and I was working from home, and I thought it'd be a good idea to maybe try coming back to the studio full-time and doing everything from here, just to have a little bit of work-life separation, and I really enjoyed it, and I've been here since. So let's jump into it. I guess we will start with the centerpiece of the room, which is this SSL AWS 900 console. So if you're watching this video, you're probably familiar with SSL. Whenever I give someone a walkthrough of the studio, I let them know that they've heard a ton of music that's been mixed through an SSL console because that's what they're known for. This console came out in 2006, I believe, and it was SSL's attempt at creating a more compact, budget-friendly SSL. Anything that touches the signal or the music is analog, but this was designed to have digital functionality. This console has 24 preamps. Each channel has an EQ. It has 2 dynamic strips, as well as it has the iconic G-Bus compressor. So that's the console. It gets the most use when we are recording a band in the live room. So moving on to the monitoring, we have the Atom A7X, and I've owned these speakers since 2015. I also have those hooked up with the KRK S12 sub, and I spend a lot of time mixing in these speakers. These are kind of like my, full range. As well as beside them, I have the Yamaha NS10s. I use those quite a bit as well. I kind of go through phases of using like one set over the other, but generally when I'm mixing, I'll switch back and forth between the two of them. I know in the NS10s, the vocals are a little louder. You can tweak your guitars with a lot more detail because the mid-range is so pushed on them, and then I'll listen to the full mix in the Atoms, and that gives me the full top to bottom frequency range, and I can dial in my low end a little bit better in those guys. Next to them, there's these little Optimus guys. The previous engineer that was here loved them, and I think in his new studio, he has a pair of them. I don't know anything about the company, but for small little speakers, they sound good, and they're surprisingly full range sounding. And then both the NS10s and the Optimus are powered by a Bryston 2B that's behind the console. Over here, we have the patch bay. It's your typical patch bay, Bantam cables. All the extra cables are over here, and then we have some Bantam to XLR and to 1/4 inch, which come in handy. On the other side of the console, we have the outboard gear here, and there are some really cool pieces, and then there's some filler pieces that are just kind of occupying space. So I'll talk about the cool pieces. We have a pair of distressors. I love these things. You've heard people talk about them ad nauseum. They're like the Swiss Army knife of compressors. I like the 2-to-1 ratio a lot, and I generally leave it on that. I like doing that minimal compression and just kind of controlling the dynamic range on kicks and snares and overheads and acoustic guitars. Below it, we have the LA2A. I work on a lot of more aggressive sounding music, just in-your-face drums, vocals, and the LA2A isn't that type of compressor, at least I haven't found it to be. So there's a time and place for that, but I prefer to use the 1176, and this is a good old Uri, don't shoot me. I like to leave the input and output set at the same level, and then I like to leave the ratio also at 8-to-1, and I generally will slam my bass or vocals, sometimes acoustic guitars, through this when I'm mixing, and I'll just change the tack and release. I like to leave the settings relatively the same, so it allows me to recall things really easily, and if I want to change the input into the compressor, I'll just do it in the DAW and change my input level there. So over here we have a Neve 5032, great preamp. It's got an EQ with it. It's really clean. It doesn't have the same 1073 saturation, but if you just want a clean preamp, that's a great go-to. Below it, we have the 2610, and I love these preamps. They're 2 preamps, and they saturate, and I don't know if this version is modded. This was here when I started working here, but it's got these two switches that I haven't seen on any other two 610s, and it essentially just drives the tube really hard, and I love the saturation on that. I love recording instruments that are really dynamic, but you don't want to use compression and hear like the attack and release grabbing it. By using this and using the harmonic saturation in it, it allows you to control the dynamics in a really musical way. So I really like that. And then below it we have the Avalon, and this is this is a classic piece that you see in a bunch of different studios. Preamp, EQ, compressor. The EQ is amazing on it. I love using this for vocals. And then our converters are the Orion 32 Plus, 32 in, 32 out, and we record in 44.1. Okay, so that is the outboard gear. Ideally, if I was gonna like redesign the studio, I would have all the outboard gear over here, because I think it's a little odd to be like, yo, I'm mixing, let's use something. Let's turn our ears away from the speakers. So maybe in the future, I might condense some of the pieces that I use all the time, put them over here. Who knows? Let's talk about the guitars. I mainly do mixing, but I also do a little bit of songwriting. I play guitar in Locket. I do a lot of production that involves playing guitars. So this is my most used studio guitar. This is just a Mexican Telecaster with an Evertune bridge. I've upgraded the pickup in it, and this is just a great studio guitar. If you record a lot of guitar in the studio, you have to have an Evertune guitar. Moving down, this is just a Reverend Charger 290. This is what I played live a lot. Doesn't have an Evertune, so I'll use this if I'm recording like a lead and I want something that's just like super chaotic. Acoustic guitar. This is my dad's Yamaha acoustic guitar. It isn't the greatest, but if you know how to play it, you can have it record well. Got my jazz bass. This thing's a little out of whack at the moment. I have a high mass bridge as well as Seymour Duncan quarter pounder pickups, and this thing sounds great. And then lastly, I have another Evertune bridge guitar. This is a PRS. I just bought it because I wanted a Evertune bridge with a guitar with humbuckers. I don't use this very often. I think I'm going to switch out this pickup. Yeah, those are the guitars. Cool. Let's keep moving. Oh, Taylor's doing crazy. Show them your effects real quick. Whoa!
One more time.
One more time. Oh! You want to just move close here. So essentially the way the studio is built with a lot of forethought. So there's a lot of mass here, and then there's an air gap, and then there's a lot more mass, and that is to isolate the sound between the two rooms. And if you look down here, you can see that this is a raised floor, so there's cabling underneath here. Everything that's patched into the outboard gear goes under the floor to the patch bay. And then this is a floating floor, so when you come here and you step down, these floors aren't connected at all, so there's no vibration translating between this room and this room. Maximum acoustic isolation. Even these panes of glass here are angled downwards, so any sound that hits it will reflect down. Welcome to the live room. You can see that there's wood all across the walls. It's a fairly dead room, but it was designed that you can essentially fully kill it by opening all these up. It does significantly dampen the room. It's a modest sized room, but we do record everything in here. So we have a drum kit that's like half set up. This is actually Taylor's Tamistar Classic. It records really well, sounds great for rock drums. It's my pearl brass snare that we use whenever we're recording drums. On this side, we got a bunch of guitar amps. Some of these are the Studios, some of these are mine. So this is a Fender Bassman 50. This is Studios, it sounds great. We have a jazz chorus, sounds awesome, records super well. If you know, you know. We have two PV VTMs. This one's actually mine, and this one is Brad's, who's the other guitar player in my band. Really cheap amps from the 80s that have gone up in value significantly. We have a Fender Twin down there, which is an amazing amp, takes pedals super well. We have a bunch of guitar pedals, and then we also have this, the Boss tube amp expander. I like to record the amp and in the computer use a cab simulation. Oftentimes when I record guitars, I like to just use amp sims, but this gives you the functionality of being able to record an amp and pedals and everything like that, but still be able to manipulate the tone in the box later by switching out the cabs, which makes a dramatic effect on the overall guitar tone. So this is a really nice thing to have. Down here we have the patch panel. This is where everything patches in, 24 ins, as well as the headphone mix and everything routes out. We keep our XLR cables down here. It's not a great system. We should definitely change that, but it is what it is. We keep mic stands just ready to go over there. And then we have this photo of Taylor. So if you come this way, you can see that just like the doors over there, we have a lot of mass in this wall. We have an air gap, and then we have even more mass this way, as well as we have a raised floor and two doors to completely acoustically isolate this room, so you can record drums in here or loud guitar amps and record vocals in here or whatever. So come on in. There isn't a great lighting solution here, so we have a couple lamps set up. If you look behind this door here, we have a patch panel. So this routes directly to the patch bay, so you can plug a microphone into here. You can route it to any of the preamps that we have over there, as well as you can plug in a headphone mix back here. So it makes it a great space to record vocals. Actually, take a step in here. I'm going to close this door here. I don't know how well you can pick this up on the microphone, but I love recording vocals in here just because of how acoustically dead it is. Now, if you take a step this way, this is essentially like storage utility closet. Probably going to be pretty dark, so let me pull on over this light here, see if we can light this up. So in here, we just keep all our microphones and other toys and whatnot. We recently cleaned this up. So up here we have our cleaning supplies and maintenance. We've got extra guitar pedals here. We have all of our microphones here, which I'll go through in a second. And then we have camera stuff, we have guitar stuff, DI boxes, extra strings, and then auxiliary percussion, as well as extra drum hardware and moon gels and all that stuff. So let's go through the microphones. We have two Neumann TLM 103s. We have two Coles 4038s. We have a bunch of 57s, a bunch of 58s. We have four Sennheiser MD 421s. We have two little AKG C480s. Gotta have a Shure SM7B, and then AKG D112, as well as a D6 for the kick drum. We also have a Neumann M149 tube microphone down here. We have a modest mic collection, but you have a little bit of versatility having the ribbon mics and the Neumanns, as well as all the dynamic microphones, and you're able to record a great sounding drum kit. So that's it for ISO booth A, but believe it or not, there's actually a second ISO booth. So this is ISO booth B, but we've retrofitted it to be Taylor's office. Woo! So come on in. And this is ISO booth B, which is a little bit smaller than ISO booth A. You can see behind the door here, it's the same thing. We got another patch panel. It goes right to the patch bay, and you can route anything in here. But we've essentially retrofitted this room just to be Taylor's office and his control room, which is funny. This whole studio is built in a basement, so coming all the way back here, some people think it's insane to have like a little office in here, and I don't disagree with them. But truthfully, once you close the doors and you work in here, it's a nice little intimate space. Taylor primarily works on music composition in here, and it's a great place to just kind of like stay focused. It's so quiet in here, so it's just you and the music. Okay, so that is a brief tour of Pebble Studios. I don't know how the lighting looks, but who cares? This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. If you made it to the end, great. This is a space that Taylor and I spend a lot of time working on music. It's hilarious that we haven't really done a tour like this or shared it with the world. We made the goal together this year to kind of clean up some of the odds and ends and make sure everything is fully operational, because we think it'd be great if other engineers were able to use this space and other artists were able to get in here instead of us just like hogging it 24 hours a day. So we'll probably document that over the next handful of months. Thank you for watching. Let us know what you think of the studio in the comments, and we will see you in the next video. Woo.